Now, the banking world is very interesting right now. It's changing as we know it, and there are trading opportunities everywhere across the continent, the Middle East. Also, then you've got the Road and Belt Initiative, which is prompted by the Chinese government, which will see many opportunities and millions of dollars being poured into this continent, particularly its emerging markets. Now, this initiative will strengthen and enhance trade between Asia, Europe, and Africa. Now, for more on what banking holds and the Belt and Road Initiative, I'm joined by Saif Malik, the Regional Co-Head of Global Banking, Africa and Middle East for Standard Chartered Bank. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
I can just start off with here in the domestic front. You're based here in Johannesburg. I mean, there's new banks popping up every 5 minutes. How are consumers going to notice this competition?
Well, I think they're all keeping up with the different trends, right? Fintech is driving the agenda these days, and you're seeing a lot of innovation on the banking side using big data. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing an emergence of banks trying to keep up with the latest trends and to keep up with this very data hungry and very small attention span customers. So how do you do it? How do you bank on your phone, on your mobile? Instead of going in and standing in a branch. And this is what we are seeing. So what we did as Standard Chartered, we launched our first digital bank in the Ivory Coast exactly a year ago. Exactly to sort of address this new population that we're seeing. Africa is probably going to have one of the largest growing population of young people, growing up and becoming consumers in the market. And we tested it out in the Ivory Coast market. It's the 5th largest market that has penetration to the mobile phone. So we thought it's a good test case. We don't have a retail banking sector there. And it's worked very well for us. You can do everything on your mobile phone.
How are you getting on there? I mean, I was reporting from there last year. I mean, I know the economy is kicking. It seems to have found stability. What are the signs you're seeing in Côte d'Ivoire?
So very exciting market. One that I think I'm very keen about. To see how we can grow. And this is one of the testament for us to launch globally our first sort of digital banking platform in the Ivory Coast. Like I said, it's a market where we didn't have a big retail banking presence. So we thought, why not go in there, build something that the consumer wants, and you can actually open your account, on your mobile phone. And for us, it was the first. So we're very excited, and we've rolled out to 5 other markets in Africa, and we'll look to roll out the rest of the markets next year.
Coming back to the South African market again, when we start, I mean, this sort of mini explosion of banks that's going on at the moment. Question I have: is the market big enough? For all these new players?
Well, I think they're all targeting a certain segment, right? There's an unbanked market. There's again, like I said, a market segment that is looking for a quick, transformation into going, where you go onto your mobile phone, you can, do various things, and you can get it done, and as opposed to waiting for 2 hours in a banking branch and then getting frustrated, as you may have seen something that came up last week. So it is there. I think there's various segments, and what I've come to talk about, the Belt and Road Initiative, is one sort of initiative where the opportunities of Africa are sort of taking hold, and you can see China really focusing on that, and it's actually one of our biggest trade partners now in Africa. China was in 2018 nearly $200 billion of trade between us and China. So that's a very exciting initiative, one that we are poised to to really work with and sort of propel and move forward.
What is your estimate, talking about that, the Belt and Road Initiative, what will be poured into this continent by the Chinese, building this infrastructure to communicate between all their business interests here? Have you as a bank come up with a figure for that?
Well, look, I mean, if you look at, it's very difficult to pinpoint a certain number, because there's a lot of projects that are run on a government-to-government level. There are projects that are coming down on a commercial basis. But, we have seen various statistics that, just the trade number that I gave you, about 210 billion in 2018, which is one of the highest from a Chinese perspective, both imports and exports. And then we're seeing, various numbers around the infrastructure gap that we have in sub-Saharan Africa is nearly 100 billion plus a year. So I think the Belt and Road Initiative is one part helping that infrastructure drive. So, that number can be, anywhere between 20, 30, 40 billion, but it depends on how you look at it. But the Chinese are helping create very critical infrastructure, opening up ports, rail lines, and roads, which is what we critically need, and not to mention power,
sure.
which is very important also.
Well, the Belt and Road is something that's often talked about at conferences.
Sure.
It's talked about it as this kind of theory, but from your books, from your point of view, what projects are we actually going to see in bricks and mortar, you think, in the next year?
Well, look, I think if we take some of the examples that we saw in Kenya, we've seen the single gauge rail linking Nairobi to Mombasa, and then there's plans to link that all the way to Uganda, to the north of Uganda, which opens up and gives Uganda the opportunity to open up to the port of Mombasa, a whole different world. It's a landlocked country, So we're seeing that. We're seeing port projects in Nigeria. We're seeing various other projects in Angola, in Zambia, in Senegal. So I think it's very exciting, if you ask me. And it is focused on infrastructure, but I think we're also seeing a good level of understanding on the sort of the commercial side. So we're seeing a lot of the projects now, the Chinese projects are coming in and they want to run it on a commercially viable basis. And so that allows us as a commercial bank that puts, we bring capital from various parts of the world into our clients, our client groups, and we can work with them. We have deep, experience in project finance, in environmentally sort of sustainable projects that are put forward in Africa. So we feel that, we're a good partner for that, and, it's hopefully get the countries also to move in the right direction, to get the right project finance and manage the risks and manage the debt levels.
I've done many, many stories down the years on projects in Africa, infrastructure projects. They're not always easy.
No, they're not.
What are the biggest stumbling blocks you're seeing for this Chinese initiative across the continent?
So, you'll have the usual stumbling blocks that, if we start off with a nascent sort of set of just the framework, be it on the legal side, do you have the right PPP? So this is public and private partnership, frameworks in place. Do you have the will, and do you have that capital also from the governments to get something going? So I think those have been challenges that we've seen from time immemorial. But as we go along, we are seeing the understanding that putting a railroad to connect it between Nairobi to Mombasa, decongest traffic. It allows you to open up a whole different world in terms of moving cargo and things like that. So I think that realization is setting in, and I think that's helping spur a lot of these projects also, and getting the legislation moving in faster, getting the right approvals in place. So I think we're seeing a good momentum in that. I would like to see more action on the power sector side. Look at a country like Nigeria, where there's a huge, power deficit, and I don't think we've seen, the surge, if I can use that term, of power projects come on, because it is becoming very difficult. It's getting tied up in bureaucracy. But clearly, the Nigerian government, the president has just got re-elected. President Buhari has come and come out and said that he wants to spend $100 billion on infrastructure projects. So we're hoping, that can spur this activity forward.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Saif Malik, the Regional Co-Head of Global Banking, Africa and Middle East for Standard Chartered Bank.